Let's cross then live to Kyiv. We're going to speak to our correspondent Gulliver Cragg, who joins us from there. Gulliver, some hope then, do you think, for these latest talks, after talks, if you like, of compromise?
Well, I think Volodymyr Zelenskiy is being ironic when he says, if I remember correctly, this is why they started the war. Not wanting Ukraine to join NATO was a pretext that Vladimir Putin put forward as his main beef with Ukraine, if you like, and now Ukraine saying it's willing to not join NATO if it gets security guarantees of another form. I think the point Volodymyr Zelenskiy is trying to make is that what Russia really wants is much broader domination over Ukraine, and to stop Ukraine having alliances with Western countries, having an ambition to join the European Union, and basically wanting it to be de facto controlled by Moscow. And so that is, in a way, why Volodymyr Zelenskiy is prepared to say that he's willing to compromise. He is showing that Ukraine is really being absolutely reasonable here, as he sees it, and that Russia is the country that is not being reasonable. But it is a move on Ukraine's part to renounce the ambition to join NATO, but he only wants it if he can get security guarantees of another kind, and for obvious reasons, because Russia is clearly very belligerent against Ukraine. As for the compromise over Donbass, that's something that he mentioned in an interview with Russian independent journalists, but he didn't mention it again in his nightly address to the nation. I think that given that he is insisting very much on maintaining the territorial integrity of Ukraine, a compromise over Donbass would be a limited one, perhaps some kind of autonomy, perhaps some kind of status for the Russian language. But another thing that Volodymyr Zelenskiy has repeatedly said is that any compromise, any deal that might be done to achieve peace in Ukraine must be put to the Ukrainian people in a referendum, and it's unclear what kind of compromise, if any at all, they would be prepared to accept in a majority.
What about the situation on the ground, Gulliver? Ukrainian forces again saying they're actually managing to push back the Russians in some areas.
Well, in some areas, Ukrainian counteroffensives seem to have been successful. They claim to have taken some villages near Kharkiv. Certainly, they have stopped the Russian forces from advancing towards Kyiv for the moment, or really advancing any further in the south. Russian forces do seem to be making some advances in eastern Ukraine, in Donbass, which is the area that they have said that they would prioritize. And also, they've intensified shelling, with missiles reportedly being fired from the Black Sea on Ukrainian strategic military targets. So all over the country, they're trying to weaken the Ukrainian armed forces, whilst in terms of their territorial ambitions, focusing on the east.
Gulliver, thanks very much. Gulliver Cragg, our correspondent, talking to us live from Kyiv.